I can't believe I'm down to pennies again, Hannah whispered, her voice barely audible beneath the fluorescent hum of the small grocery store as she counted the coins in her worn leather wallet. The tiny, cramped aisles smelled faintly of cleaning chemicals, stale bread, and the damp wool of customers who had stepped in from the morning drizzle. Beside her, 6-month-old Sophie stirred in the stroller, her small face flushed beneath a faded pink hat, the soft cry rising and falling like a fragile thread tugging at Hannah's chest. Hannah held a can of baby milk in one hand, the label promising a specialty formula that Sophie's pediatrician insisted she needed. Gentle on digestion. Recommended for sensitive infants. Nearly double the price of the formula Hannah had planned for this week. She looked at the total again. $4.67 short. Just $4.67. It was a ridiculous amount to break a person. And yet, there it was, standing between her and the one thing Sophie might actually keep down today. Her fingers trembled as she shifted the coins back and forth, trying to make them add up differently. Each clink against the countertop felt like a small hammer striking her chest, a reminder that she was one miscalculation away from having to put the formula back and carry her hungry baby home. She glanced up. A couple of customers passed by slowly enough to see the coins, the can of formula, the worn sleeve of her coat, the stroller with one wheel that squeaked every few feet. One woman leaned toward her husband and whispered, "Can you believe she's buying that?" The husband murmured back, "Does she even have enough?" Their eyes lingered a little too long. Hannah's cheeks burned. She wanted to explain. Wanted to say that Sophie had been vomiting for 3 weeks. That the cheaper formula made her scream until her voice went hoarse. That Hannah had already watered down her own coffee with hot tap water twice this week because milk was for the baby. That she had skipped dinner last night and called it not being hungry. But poverty taught you not to explain too much. People didn't want explanations. They wanted distance. She opened her mouth anyway, maybe to apologize, maybe to ask the cashier to remove the diapers, but the words caught in her throat, swallowed by exhaustion and pride. A soft voice interrupted her spiraling thoughts. "Is your baby going to be okay?" Hannah froze. Her fingers stilled on the coins. She turned slowly and met the gaze of a man standing a few feet behind her, impeccably dressed in a tailored navy suit beneath a dark wool coat that looked untouched by hardship. His presence was quiet yet commanding, his steel-gray eyes studying her intently but without cruelty. For one strange second, Hannah felt a pull of recognition, as if she had seen him somewhere before, in another life, behind glass walls or inside the clean pages of a magazine she would never buy. She shook her head. "I'm fine, thank you." The answer came too quickly. He tilted his head slightly, not aggressively, but with the kind of patience that made her feel both seen and exposed. "You don't have to explain," he said. "Not pity. Not charity. Just a sentence offered quietly enough that no one else could claim it." Hannah's throat tightened. Her pride warred with desperation until both became too heavy to hold. Before she could count the coins again, he reached into his pocket and slid a $20 bill across the counter. The smooth, crisp edge caught the harsh store light. "Consider it covered," he said simply. Hannah stared at it. Then at him. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything." The cashier took the bill with gentle discretion, as though trying to preserve the last thin layer of Hannah's dignity. Behind them, the line went silent. That was the part Hannah hated most. Not the whispers. The silence after someone wealthy stepped in. As if everyone suddenly remembered how to behave only after power entered the room. She handed over the coins anyway. Every last one she had counted. She needed to feel like she had paid something, even if the truth was obvious to everyone watching. Sophie whimpered from the stroller, her little hands twitching beneath the blanket. The man's gaze shifted to her. Something changed in his face. A tightening around the eyes. Not pity. Recognition. Pain, maybe. Hannah looked away first. The cashier placed the receipt on top of the bag. Hannah reached for the groceries, but one heavier bag tilted from the counter. The man caught it before it fell, steadying it with one hand. "I can carry it," Hannah said quickly. He released it immediately. Of course. That surprised her. Most people who helped expected to keep control of the help. Hannah gathered the bags as best she could and pushed the stroller toward the narrow aisle leading to the exit. Every few steps, she felt the weight of other shoppers' stares. Some sympathetic. Some judgmental. Some curious in that awful way people became when another person's struggle briefly entertained them. Her cheeks burned, not just from embarrassment, but from the pressure she had carried alone for so long. Bills. Daycare calls. Sophie's fever. The landlord's late notice folded beneath the sugar jar. The unpaid hospital statement from Sophie's premature birth. She had become a woman made of calculations. How many diapers left? How long until payday? Could rent wait 4 days? Would the electricity company really disconnect before Monday? The line near the door moved slowly, blocked by a customer arguing over a coupon. Hannah shifted Sophie slightly in the stroller, adjusting the blanket around her tiny legs. Sophie's eyes were wide under the fluorescent lights, but too glassy. Too tired. Behind her, the man remained nearby. Not hovering. Not pushing. Just present. His silence made Hannah uneasy because it wasn't indifferent. It felt deliberate, as if he were giving her room to refuse him while also making sure she didn't collapse under the weight of the morning. A box of diapers slipped from the side of the bag and tumbled toward the floor. Hannah bent quickly, wishing she could disappear. The man stepped forward and caught it before it hit the tile. He handed it back with a polite nod. "Thank you," she managed. This time the words came out. He nodded once. "You're welcome." At the automatic doors, cold air rushed in as they slid open. The damp scent of winter streets and distant traffic wrapped around Hannah immediately. She tightened Sophie's blanket and stepped outside onto the slick sidewalk. The rain had softened into mist, leaving the pavement shiny beneath gray morning light. Her small hatchback was parked 2 blocks away because she had chosen the free street parking instead of the grocery lot meters. The stroller wheel squeaked with every turn. One grocery bag cut into her fingers. Sophie fussed softly, the sound weakening instead of growing stronger. The man fell into step beside her. Hannah stopped. "You really don't have to." He stopped too, keeping a respectful distance. "I know. You keep saying that." A faint pause. "Because I mean it." Hannah studied him then. The expensive coat. The controlled posture. The careful voice. The watch half hidden beneath his sleeve probably cost more than she made in 3 months. "What's your name?" she asked. "Ethan." "Just Ethan." For the first time, something almost like a smile touched his mouth. "Ethan Mercer." The name landed hard. Hannah felt her stomach tighten before she even knew why. Mercer. Mercer Biotech. The acquisition. The layoffs. The company logo printed on the folder she had carried out of Belmere Labs the day security escorted half her department from the building. "You're Ethan Mercer." His expression shifted. "You know the name. I used to work for Belmere Labs." The street noise seemed to thin around them. Ethan's face became very still. Hannah adjusted her grip on the bag. "Your company bought us last year. Then your restructuring team eliminated my department." A car hissed through a puddle beside the curb. Ethan did not look away. "I'm sorry," he said. The words were quiet. Hannah laughed once under her breath. Not because it was funny. Because sometimes anger and exhaustion came out sounding like disbelief. "People like you are always sorry after the math is done." His jaw tightened slightly, but he did not defend himself. That almost made it worse. She started walking again. Ethan followed, carrying one bag only after she gave the smallest nod. The motion was simple, a shared effort to manage weight, yet it created a strange rhythm between them. Each step careful. Each silence heavy. When they reached the small hatchback, Hannah opened the trunk and moved aside. Ethan placed the bag inside. Carefully, not tossing it, not rushing, not acting as if the contents were unimportant because they were cheap. Sophie coughed from the stroller. A dry, weak little cough. Hannah turned immediately. Her daughter's face was too warm when Hannah touched her cheek. "No, no, sweetheart," she whispered, lifting Sophie from the stroller and pressing her close. Ethan noticed. "How long has she had the fever?" "On and off since yesterday." "And the vomiting?" Hannah's head lifted sharply. "How did you know she was vomiting?" His eyes moved to the formula visible through the grocery bag. Specialty formula. Fever. She looks dehydrated. It should have felt intrusive. Instead, it made Hannah cold. "She's been sick for weeks," Hannah said. "Doctor said maybe formula intolerance. Maybe reflux. Maybe the medication." "What medication?" The intensity in his voice changed. Hannah reached into the diaper bag and pulled out the small prescription bottle she carried everywhere now because the pediatrician had told her not to miss doses. Ethan took it carefully. The second he saw the label, the color drained from his face. Mercer Biotech. The logo was printed in blue beneath the dosage instructions. Hannah saw him freeze. "What?" she asked. He turned the bottle slightly, reading the batch number. His silence frightened her more than any answer could have. "What?" she repeated. Ethan looked at Sophie, then at Hannah. "How long has she been taking this?" 3 weeks. His hand tightened around the bottle. "There was an internal review opened last week." Hannah stared at him. "What kind of review?" He seemed to choose each word with visible difficulty. "Possible pediatric side effects. Severe gastrointestinal reactions in some infants." The sidewalk seemed to tilt beneath her. "You knew." "We didn't have confirmed data yet." "That is not what I asked." A long silence passed. Then Ethan said, "Yes." Hannah took the bottle from him, her fingers shaking now for a different reason. The rain misted across her face. Sophie whimpered against her shoulder. For a moment, all Hannah could hear was the blood rushing in her ears. "So you bought my company, took my job, and your medicine may have made my baby sick." Ethan closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, the composure had cracked. "I didn't know it was you." "No," Hannah said, voice low. "You just didn't know who any of us were." That landed. She saw it land. For a second, he looked less like a CEO and more like a man standing in the wreckage of decisions that had finally grown faces. Sophie coughed again. Then her small body jerked, and she vomited onto Hannah's coat. Hannah's anger vanished beneath panic. "Oh God. Sophie." Ethan stepped forward, then stopped himself. "What do you need?" Hannah wiped Sophie's mouth with the burp cloth from the diaper bag, her hands moving quickly from practice. "I need to get her home." "No," Ethan said carefully. "She needs a hospital." "I can't afford the hospital." The words came out flat. Automatic. A survival reflex. Ethan stared at her. "Hannah, no. Don't say my name like you know what that means." Her voice cracked. "I still owe Mercy General $11,000 from her birth. Collections call me more than my own family ever did. I can't walk into another emergency room unless she's..." Sophie whimpered weakly and sagged against her chest. That ended the argument. Hannah looked down at her daughter's flushed face. Then at the street. Then at Ethan. "I'll drive." Her voice shook. Ethan nodded. I'll follow you. No, Hannah swallowed hard. You'll ride with us. If that medication did this, you're going to look a doctor in the eye with me. For the first time since they met, Ethan looked almost relieved to be commanded. Yes, he said. I will. Mercy General smelled like antiseptic, old coffee, and fear. Hannah knew the pediatric emergency entrance too well. The sliding doors opened into a waiting room full of exhausted parents, crying children, plastic chairs, and vending machines that charged too much for everything. At the front desk, a nurse asked for Sophie's insurance card. Hannah's stomach tightened. It changed, she said. I'm between coverage. That was the polite version. The real version was that her employer health insurance had ended after Belmere laid her off, and the state assistance application had been delayed because one document was missing, then another, then another. The nurse handed her a clipboard. Fill these out. Hospital paperwork had its own cruelty. It asked for certainty from people in crisis. Employer. Income. Emergency contact. Insurance. Responsible party. Hannah stared at the emergency contact line. Blank. Always blank. Her mother had died when she was 19. Her father had left long before that. Sophie's father, Daniel, had disappeared 3 weeks after Sophie came home from the NICU, leaving behind a note and a half-empty drawer. I can't do this. As if Hannah could choose not to. Ethan sat beside her without speaking. She can put me down, he said quietly. Hannah looked at him. You don't get to become emergency contact because you feel guilty. His face tightened. I know. Stop saying that. He held her gaze. All right. The nurse waited. Sophie whimpered against Hannah's chest, her little lips dry. Hannah looked down at the form. Then wrote Ethan Mercer. Her hand shook so badly the letters came out uneven. Relationship to patient? She paused. Ethan answered softly, family friend. Hannah almost laughed. There was nothing funny about it. Sophie was taken back within 20 minutes. Dehydration. Elevated fever. Possible medication reaction. Possible formula intolerance. Possible viral infection. Hospitals loved possibilities. They hung in the air like unpaid debts. A pediatric resident examined Sophie while Hannah stood beside the bed, one hand on her daughter's tiny foot. Ethan remained near the doorway, silent, controlled, but paler than before. The doctor asked about the medication. Ethan stepped forward. That medication is manufactured by Mercer Biotech, he said. There may be an active safety review related to batch 7A. The doctor looked up sharply. Hannah did too. Batch 7A. She hadn't told him the number aloud. How do you know that? She asked. Ethan's mouth tightened. I saw it on the label. No, her voice lowered. How do you know it matters? The doctor's eyes moved between them. Ethan hesitated just long enough for the answer to become clear. Hannah felt something cold settle beneath her ribs. There were earlier reports. He did not. Look away. How early? She asked. Hannah, how early? His voice was barely above a whisper. 6 weeks ago. The room went still. Even the monitor seemed louder. 6 weeks. Sophie had been prescribed the medication 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks after warning signs existed somewhere in corporate files. Hannah took one step back from him. You let it stay on the market. It wasn't that simple. My baby is in a hospital bed. Make it simple. The doctor cleared her throat gently, uncomfortable but focused. We're going to start fluids and run labs. Right now, the priority is stabilizing Sophie. Hannah turned back to her daughter. The anger had nowhere to go. So it became stillness. The kind that frightened even her. Hours passed slowly. The hospital room dimmed as evening turned into night. Sophie slept beneath a thin blanket with an IV taped carefully to her tiny hand. Every few minutes Hannah checked the tape, the monitor, Sophie's breathing, the color of her lips. A nurse brought Hannah a paper cup of water. She realized she hadn't eaten since half a granola bar at dawn. Ethan returned from the hallway carrying coffee and a wrapped sandwich. "I didn't know what you liked." "I'm not hungry." "You need to eat." "I said I'm not hungry." He set the sandwich on the small table anyway, then stepped back. The distance was deliberate. Respectful. Painful. For a while, only the machine spoke. Finally Ethan said, "I approved the acceleration phase." Hannah did not look at him. "For the medication?" "Yes." "You personally?" "Yes." The word was quiet but complete. Her hand tightened around the edge of Sophie's blanket. "Why?" A long pause. "Pressure. Investors. Expansion after the acquisition. We were behind schedule." The early reports were categorized as inconclusive. "Inconclusive," Hannah repeated. The word tasted poisonous. "Do you know what poverty does to medical decisions?" she asked, still looking at Sophie. "It makes you trust whatever the doctor gives you because you can't afford second opinions. It makes you ignore symptoms too long because emergency rooms cost more than rent. It makes you sit in your kitchen at 3 in the morning wondering if your baby is sick enough to justify debt." Ethan said nothing. Good. She wanted him to hear it without cleaning it up. "When Sophie vomited the first week, I thought maybe I mixed the formula wrong. When she cried all night, I thought maybe I was too tired to burp her properly. When she lost weight, I blamed myself." Her voice cracked, but she forced it steady. "You people make decisions in rooms where no one has to count coins afterward." Ethan lowered his head. "You're right." The answer made her angrier. "Don't agree with me like that fixes anything." "It doesn't." "Then what are you still doing here?" For the first time, he struggled. His composure faltered. "I don't know how to walk away." Hannah looked at him then. Something in his face startled her. Grief. Not guilt only. Grief. Old, buried, badly healed. Before she could ask, a nurse entered to check Sophie's IV, breaking the moment. Ethan stepped back into silence. At 2:17 a.m., after Sophie's fever began to drop, Hannah finally sat in the hard chair beside the crib. Her body felt hollow with exhaustion. Ethan stood near the window, city lights reflected faintly across the glass. "You asked why I stayed," he said quietly. Hannah didn't answer. "My wife died in a hospital room." The words entered the room softly. Hannah's gaze lifted despite herself. Ethan kept looking out the window. 3 years ago. Cancer. She was 7 months pregnant. The air changed. Hannah felt it in her chest. We lost them both. The anger inside her did not disappear. But it shifted. Made room, unwillingly, for something more complicated. "I'm sorry," she said. He nodded once. "So am I." No performance. No dramatic confession. Just a wound spoken plainly. "After Claire died, I went back to work 2 weeks later," he continued. "People called me resilient. Disciplined. Strong." His mouth tightened faintly. "I wasn't. I was avoiding an empty house." Hannah looked down at Sophie. "I know something about that." He turned slightly. "Her father left. When?" 3 weeks after we brought her home from the NICU. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. "He said he didn't sign up for a sick baby," Hannah said quietly. The words had become easier to say over time. That did not make them hurt less. I kept his note for months, she added. Not because I missed him. Because sometimes I needed proof that he really said it. That I didn't invent how cruel it was. Ethan moved as if to speak, then stopped. Good. There were no useful words for some things. Outside the hospital window, rain blurred the city into smears of red and white light. Inside, two exhausted adults sat near a sleeping baby, connected by damage neither had asked for and harm one of them could not deny. Morning brought hospital billing. It always did. A woman from financial services arrived with a tablet and a practiced expression. Hannah answered questions with the quiet efficiency of someone used to being reduced to income brackets. Employment. Temporary remote work. Part-time. Monthly income. It changes. Insurance. Pending. Assets. Hannah almost laughed. Ethan stood near the doorway listening. When the woman left, he said, I can cover the bill. No, the answer was immediate. Hannah, no, this is directly connected to my company. Then your company can handle it through the proper process when there is one. You don't get to hand me a check in a hospital room and make the feeling go away. His expression tightened. That isn't what I'm trying to do. But it's what would happen. Silence. Hannah rubbed both hands over her tired face. I need help, she admitted, and the words nearly broke her. But I need to not belong to someone because they helped me. Ethan absorbed that. Then nodded slowly. All right. That answer mattered. Because he did not argue. Sophie was discharged 2 days later with instructions, follow-up appointments, a medication change, and a packet of paperwork thick enough to feel like a threat. The world outside Mercy General looked painfully ordinary. Buses sighed at curbs. People carried coffee. A man shouted into his phone near the parking garage. Hannah stood with Sophie bundled against her chest and felt as if she had aged years in 4 days. Ethan carried the diaper bag. You don't have to keep doing this, she said. I know. She looked at him. He corrected himself quietly. I'm here because you allowed me to be. That was better. She let him drive them home. The apartment looked smaller after the hospital. More fragile. The unpaid bills still waited near the microwave. The radiator still clanged. Upstairs, someone's toddler ran back and forth across the floor with the heavy footsteps of a child who had not yet learned restraint. Hannah placed Sophie carefully on the blanket in the living room. Ethan set the bags down near the kitchen. For a moment, neither moved. Then Hannah noticed him looking at the late rent notice half hidden beneath a grocery receipt. She picked it up quickly. I'm handling it. I wasn't going to say anything. You saw it. Yes. And now you're thinking how easy it would be to fix. His silence answered. Hannah gave a tired laugh. There it is. I'm trying to learn when help becomes control. That stopped her. She looked at him. He seemed embarrassed by the honesty. I'm not good at it, he admitted. No, Hannah said. You're not. A faint breath left him. Almost a laugh. Almost pain. Over the next week, Ethan did not disappear. He also did not invade. He called once before coming by. He asked instead of assuming. He left groceries outside the door only after Hannah texted that she could accept them if they were part of the official product recall support program his company had finally launched. The distinction mattered to her. It mattered to him that it mattered. Sophie improved slowly. Not magically. Slowly. She still cried at night. Still struggled with feeding. Still needed follow-up blood work that made Hannah sick with anxiety. But her cheeks regained color, and once, while lying on the living room blanket, she laughed at the squeaky stroller wheel Ethan had removed and tried to repair. He looked absurd sitting on Hannah's floor in a dress shirt with rolled sleeves, holding a tiny screwdriver. You run a biotech company, Hannah said from the kitchen. Yes. And this wheel is defeating you. It's a complicated wheel. It squeaks. It squeaks with confidence. Hannah laughed before she could stop herself. The sound startled both of them. Ethan looked up. Not with triumph. With relief. Like he had been waiting to know whether she still remembered how. Then his phone rang. His expression changed when he saw the screen. Bored. Legal. Crisis. He stepped into the hallway to answer. Hannah watched through the partly open door as his shoulders hardened, his voice lowered, the CEO returning like armor being placed piece by piece over a tired man. No, he said. We are not delaying disclosure. A pause. I understand what it will do to valuation. Another pause. I said no. When he returned, the warmth had dimmed. They want containment, he said. And you? I want accountability. Hannah studied him. Do you? Or do you want redemption? The question struck him hard. He did not answer quickly. I don't know, he said finally. It was the most honest thing he could have said. The scandal broke publicly 3 days later. Mercer Biotech under federal review after pediatric safety concerns. Hannah saw it first on the muted television above the laundromat dryers while folding Sophie's onesies. Ethan's face appeared on screen beside words like negligence, inquiry, infant complications, shareholder panic. The woman beside Hannah glanced at the television, then at Sophie, then back at the screen. Recognition flickered. Hannah packed the laundry quickly and left before the question started. By Friday, reporters found her building. The first knock came at 7:42 p.m. Hard. Sharp. Not a neighbor's knock. Hannah looked through the peephole and saw a camera. Her stomach dropped. She backed away, but Sophie started crying, startled by the noise. Ms. Cole, a voice called from the hallway. Is it true your daughter was harmed by Mercer Biotech's medication? Another knock. Did Ethan Mercer pay you to stay quiet? Hannah's hands shook as she lifted Sophie from the crib. The hallway filled with murmurs. Neighbors opening doors. Watching. Always watching. She opened the door only enough to speak. How did you get my address? A camera flashed. Are you romantically involved with Ethan Mercer? The question hit like a slap. Behind the reporter, Mrs. Alvarez from 3C stared with wide eyes. Mr. Jenkins from upstairs leaned over the railing. Someone whispered. Hannah felt suddenly back in the grocery store. Visible. Judged. Small. Then Ethan's voice cut through the hallway. That's enough. The reporter turned. Ethan stepped between them, no entourage, no driver visible, his coat damp from rain. She asked you to leave. Mr. Mercer, can you confirm? No, the word was quiet but absolute. You will not photograph her child. You will not block this hallway. And you will not return to this address. His calm was more intimidating than anger. The reporter hesitated, then retreated toward the stairs. But the damage had already happened. Doors remained cracked. Whispers remained. Hannah shut the apartment door with shaking hands. Sophie cried against her shoulder. Ethan turned toward her. I'm sorry. Stop. He went still. Don't say sorry like it cleans anything. I didn't know they had your address. But they did. Her voice broke. And now everyone here thinks I sold my sick baby's story to a billionaire. No one who matters, don't. She laughed bitterly. Don't finish that sentence from inside a life where reputation can be managed. Ethan flinched. Good. She was too tired to protect him from the truth. I have to live here, she said. I have to walk down those stairs. I have to bring Sophie past those people. You get to leave in a black car. He looked at the floor. The apartment seemed smaller than ever. Sophie's crying softened into tired hiccups. Hannah swayed gently, soothing her while barely holding herself together. "I'm so tired," she whispered. The words were not dramatic. They were worse. They were empty. Ethan looked helpless then. Truly helpless. And for the first time, Hannah saw that power had limits. It could move money. Silence lawyers. Command rooms. But it could not undo shame once other people had witnessed it. That night, Ethan slept on the couch because the reporters remained outside for hours. Near dawn, Hannah woke and found him sitting upright, still dressed, Sophie asleep in the bassinet beside him. His phone buzzed on the coffee table again and again. One message preview lit the screen. "Distance yourself from the woman before Monday's hearing." Hannah read it before she could look away. Cold settled inside her. Of course. She should have known. People like Ethan survived scandals through strategy. Not attachment. When he woke fully an hour later, she had already rebuilt the walls inside herself. "You should go," she said. He looked at her carefully. "Hannah, you have bigger problems. I'm not leaving because of board pressure." "So you saw the message?" "Yes. And I ignored it." She folded Sophie's blanket with unnecessary precision. "Maybe you shouldn't." Ethan stood slowly. "You think I'm here because I feel guilty. Aren't you?" The silence hurt because neither of them knew how simple the answer was. "You feel responsible," Hannah continued. "Maybe helping me makes that easier. Maybe Sophie reminds you of what you lost. Maybe I'm just the nearest place to put all that grief." Ethan's face tightened. "That isn't fair." "No," she said softly. "But it might be true." He looked away. For once, no controlled answer came. No careful sentence. No quiet reassurance. Just a wounded man caught between guilt and something he was afraid to name. Finally he said, "I have a federal hearing Monday." Hannah nodded. "Then go prepare." "And after?" She looked at Sophie. "I don't know." Monday morning, Ethan Mercer sat before a federal oversight committee while cameras broadcast everything live. Hannah told herself she would not watch. Then she did. Sophie slept against her chest while senators questioned Ethan about acceleration approvals, internal safety reviews, investor pressure, and why warnings had not reached physicians sooner. Ethan looked exhausted beneath the polished suit. Older somehow. One senator leaned forward. "Mr. Mercer, did you personally understand the human consequences of keeping this product active while reviewing safety concerns?" The room fell silent. Ethan did not reach for water. Did not consult counsel. Did not perform outrage. He simply sat with the question. Then answered quietly. "No," a pause. "But I do now." Another senator pressed. "Are you admitting responsibility?" Ethan's lawyers shifted behind him. He ignored them. "I'm admitting that responsibility does not begin only when liability is proven. Families were harmed while my company waited for certainty. I approved the system that allowed waiting to feel acceptable." Hannah's throat tightened. On the screen, Ethan looked directly forward. Not at the senators. Not at the cameras. Almost as if speaking to someone beyond the room. "We called it risk assessment," he said. "But risk belonged to families who never agreed to carry it." The word settled heavily in Hannah's apartment. Sophie shifted in her sleep. Hannah looked down at her daughter's tiny face and felt anger, grief, and something dangerously close to respect all exist at once. 3 nights passed before Ethan came again. No driver. No briefcase. No assistant. Just him standing outside her door, coat collar damp from snow. Hannah opened it cautiously. You look terrible, she said. A tired breath escaped him. That seems to be the consensus. Neither moved. Then Sophie squealed from the blanket on the floor. Ethan's face changed immediately. Not guilt. Not performance. Something softer and more frightening. Love trying very hard not to arrive too quickly. Hannah stepped aside. He entered. The apartment remained small. The bills still existed. The investigation still existed. The world had not transformed. But Sophie reached for him with both hands, and Ethan sat carefully on the rug as though accepting something sacred. For a long while, Hannah watched them in silence. Then she said, "I'm still angry." Ethan nodded. "You should be. I don't forgive you. I know. I don't even know what forgiveness would mean here." He looked up. "Neither do I." That helped. More than any perfect answer would have. Weeks passed slowly. Mercer Biotech suspended the pediatric program. A compensation fund was created through official channels, not Ethan's personal checkbook. Independent doctors reviewed affected cases. Hannah accepted help only when it came with documentation, oversight, and the right to say no. Ethan learned. Slowly. Imperfectly. He still made mistakes. Once, he arranged a private pediatric consultation without asking her first. Hannah cancelled it and did not speak to him for 2 days. When he came back, he did not defend himself. "I assumed," he said. "Yes. I'm sorry. You keep trying to remove obstacles before asking whether I want you on the road." He looked down. "That's accurate." She almost smiled. Almost. Another time, Hannah snapped at him for buying Sophie an expensive developmental toy set. "She needs stability, not imported wooden blocks," she said. Ethan looked genuinely confused. "I thought it was useful." "It is. That's not the point." He learned the point eventually. Gifts could feel like pressure. Help could feel like debt. Care could feel like control if given without listening. December brought snow and quieter streets. The reporters disappeared. Neighbors stopped whispering openly, though Mrs. Alvarez began leaving soup outside Hannah's door without comment. Mr. Jenkins fixed the loose stair railing after Ethan nearly fell carrying Sophie's stroller. Small things shifted. Not miracles. Just human things. One evening, Hannah returned from the pharmacy carrying medication that now cost less because the assistant's paperwork had finally processed. She found Ethan in her kitchen attempting to repair the cabinet door that had sagged for months. He was failing. Badly. "You're holding the hinge backward," she said. He looked offended. "I am not. The cabinet currently opens into the wall." He stared at it. Then sighed. "I may be." Hannah laughed. A real laugh. It surprised her. It surprised him too. Sophie, sitting in her high chair with mashed banana across her chin, laughed because Hannah did. The sound filled the apartment with something Hannah had almost forgotten. Ease. Later that night, after Sophie fell asleep, Ethan stood near the window watching snow gather on the fire escape. Hannah washed bottles in the sink. The water ran warm over her cracked hands. "Claire wanted children," Ethan said quietly. Hannah turned off the tap. He had not spoken his wife's name often. "She wanted a noisy house," he continued. "Messy. Full of things I used to think would annoy me." His mouth tightened. "I was in Singapore when she collapsed. Closing a merger." Hannah stayed still. "I missed her last call." The apartment seemed to hold its breath. "For a long time, I blamed work for taking her from me," he said. "Then I hid inside it anyway." Hannah dried her hands slowly. "I don't know what to say. There may not be anything." That was true. She stepped beside him at the window. Snow softened the streetlights below. "I kept Daniel's note," she said after a while. Ethan looked at her. "Sophie's father." She folded her arms. "I told myself I kept it in case he ever came back and tried to pretend he hadn't abandoned us. But really, I think I kept it because it explained why I stopped expecting people to stay." Ethan's voice was quiet. "Do you still have it?" "No, when did you throw it away?" Hannah looked toward Sophie's crib. "Last week." Ethan did not smile. He understood it wasn't a happy thing exactly. It was just a step. On Christmas Eve, the apartment glowed with a small strand of lights Hannah bought secondhand from the church basement sale. There was no grand tree. Just a tiny tabletop one near the window, decorated with paper stars and one crooked silver ornament from Hannah's childhood. Ethan arrived with no extravagant gifts. Only a bag of groceries, a pharmacy receipt, and a small stuffed rabbit for Sophie after asking Hannah first. That mattered. They ate soup at the small kitchen table while snow fell quietly outside. Sophie slept early, worn out from teething and too much excitement. For once, the apartment was peaceful. Not silent. Peaceful. The radiator clanged. A pipe knocked somewhere in the wall. A neighbor's television murmured faintly through the floor. Real life. Hannah stood near Sophie's crib, watching her daughter sleep. Ethan remained by the doorway, giving her space. "You know this still might not work," Hannah said quietly. "I know. I still don't fully trust you." "I know that too." She looked at him. "You hurt people." His jaw tightened. "Yes. And one hearing doesn't undo that. No, one apology doesn't heal Sophie. No, one kind man in my kitchen doesn't erase what your company did." Ethan swallowed. No, the honesty sat between them. Painful. Necessary. Then Hannah said, softer, "But you stayed." He looked at her then. Fully. "I wanted to. Even when it got ugly. Especially then." She looked away first, because something inside her was trembling. Hope. Maybe. Fear, definitely. Ethan stepped no closer. He had learned that too. "I'm not asking you for forgiveness tonight," he said. "What are you asking for?" "A chance to keep becoming someone who might deserve it someday." The words were quiet. Imperfect. Human. Hannah looked toward Sophie. Her daughter breathed softly beneath the blanket, cheeks healthy now, one tiny hand curled near her face. Nothing was fixed. Not completely. There were still medical follow-ups. Still legal proceedings. Still debt. Still grief. Still anger. Still two adults carrying wounds that would not vanish because snow fell beautifully outside a small apartment window. But something had changed. Not loudly. Not magically. A wall had softened. A door had opened. Trust had not arrived whole. It had begun. Hannah turned back to Ethan. "You can stay for coffee," she said. His expression shifted, barely. But she saw it. The relief. The ache. The careful hope. "I'd like that." In the kitchen, Hannah poured 2 cups of reheated coffee from the pot she had forgotten that morning. It tasted bitter. A little burnt. Ordinary. Ethan accepted it without complaint. They sat at the small table while the city moved quietly beyond the frosted windows. No promises. No perfect ending. No billionaire rescue. Just 2 emotionally damaged people sitting in the fragile beginning of something honest. Outside, snow kept falling. Inside, Sophie slept. And for the first time in a long time, Hannah allowed herself to believe that healing did not always arrive as rescue. Sometimes it came as accountability. Sometimes as silence. Sometimes as someone learning how to help without taking over. Sometimes as a tired woman finally drinking coffee while it was still warm. And sometimes, only sometimes, it began with the smallest impossible thing. A stranger seeing your shame. And choosing not to look away.